Hustleburg. This podcast is all about small business in St. Petersburg, Florida, how the business owners got started, how they built their business, and how they serve our community. I'm Brett Bittner, and I'm the host of Hustleburg, and I started Beyond Your Side Hustle, a marketing firm where we help budding entrepreneurs go beyond their side hustles and ditch their 9-to-5s. As the founder of a small business here in St. Pete myself, I love meeting and talking with fellow small business owners. Lucky for you, I also like to record those conversations for you to listen to. If you find anything of value in this episode, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast because there are probably more nuggets in other episodes, both past and upcoming. It would also be great if you rate and review the episode to let us know what you got out of the conversation. If you have a question about marketing, building your brand, or operating your small business that you'd like to have answered on a Q&A episode, please visit beyondyoursidehustle.com/podcast question to submit it. Welcome back to the Hustleburg podcast. This is episode number 18, where we are in the second of two of our series of answering your questions about marketing your brand or your business on Instagram. If you missed the first three questions that we answered in the first of this two-part series, that's going to be back in episode number 16 from 2 weeks ago. You will also see in 2 weeks that we will be moving on to answering your questions about LinkedIn in episode number 20, and I imagine episode 22 as well, just based on the number of questions that we've gotten thus far in our previous series in episodes 12 and 14 on Facebook. And so we're going to jump right into the questions that we have for Instagram today. The first one that I have is from Amanda, and she asks, is it best to organically grow your following on Instagram? And if so, what are some tips for doing that? Now, I love subjective questions like these because I really can't be wrong because I'm just offering an opinion. But I'm also going to share with you what it is that I have done to grow organically, not only for the Beyond Your Side Hustle brand, but for other brands that I've worked with in the past. So when it comes to growing a community, no matter the platform, I've always found that organic growth is best. These people have found value in what it is that you offer, and they've chosen to follow you, generally with no more than an invitation. That will always mean more for your community through deep connections with them and their buy-in to what you do. These are your early adopters. These are your early fans. They're the ones that you're going to build sustained, deep connections with. That being said, there's absolutely value in the bot follower. And I use the term bot because you've paid to advertise in some way to get their attention. They can certainly find value in you and what you do, and you can certainly build a deep connection with them as a member of the community that you've built. But regardless of the type of follower or community member, you need to attract them. And to attract them organically, you'll need to approach them with something of value because initially they don't know that you exist, right? Or else they'd already be a part of what it is that you're building. And in earlier episodes of the podcast, we talked about having a base of content before you even invite your mom or your significant other to follow or connect with you on that platform. And that base of content, it centers around the 5 focus areas that we've outlined in depth previously, but I'll go over them quickly here. Here they are again. Number 1, the main thing that you do. It is how you add value to the world at large and specifically to your community. This establishes you as an expert in doing your thing. The second focus is something that is related to that main thing. This related topic will help to bolster your expertise and highlight that you aren't just a one-trick pony. The third focus is another thing related to that main thing. So numbers 2 and 3 are just related to the main thing that you do. This related topic will further bolster your expertise to those who find you, and they're going to provide a base for 8 out of 10 pieces of content when coupled with number 1 and number 2. When you bundle them with your main thing and another related topic that you create, you have about 80% of the content that you're going to put out focused on one of those 3 things. Number 4 in those focuses is something that is interesting to you, but is not directly related to any of the topics for which you already create content. For many, it's going to be where you went to college or where you are from originally, or if you're a native of the community, or maybe there's a sports team that you're a big fan of that you support that you'll talk about as well. And the fifth focus is another thing just like that, interesting to you, but remains not directly related to the top three topics. To give you a few more examples, this can be talking about your family, talking about your faith, or talking about volunteer work, just to offer just a couple more suggestions about topics 4 and 5 for the 5 main topics. Now, these 5 topics will give you so much content to create that your first 10 or so posts on any platform should take very little time to build out that base of your account before you even invite the first person to follow. And I like 10 just because it's an easy to remember number. It's easy to accomplish. You have your 5 focus areas. That's basically building things out so that you are able to post something in each of those 5 areas, and you're going to be able to give people a glimpse at the personality of your brand and your business. Like I said, it should take very little time to build these out, and it's going to be, these posts already need to be in your feed, whether we're speaking of Instagram or another platform, because you are going to be giving your community a taste of what to expect when they decide to join it. Once you have that content created and posted, that's when you start inviting the people that you love. Invite your parents, your siblings, your significant other, your children, anyone that you assume will appreciate what it is that you're doing and will engage with it just because it's something that you do. And if you're comfortable connecting Instagram with your contacts or your Facebook account in hopes of finding fast friends and fast follows there, be selective about asking them to connect with you or to follow you. If you do ask them to follow you on those accounts, don't just do a mass follow me to absolutely everybody with a Facebook account and an Instagram account, or if they're going through your contacts, because it will then invite them to Instagram. And if that's not something that you're interested in, you're already kind of making a withdrawal in your personal account with that person. Finally, take a look at the accounts in your local area, in your community, in the field that your brand or business is in, and interests around those two things. And be generous with the follow button. You'll also see that Instagram will also suggest who to follow, but we're going to wait a bit on that when we talk about the Explore tab and setting their algorithm to actually work for you rather than just very popular creators that you may not have any interest in. So once you have kind of your base network, your core group of people, how do you reach out to people outside that network? Well, I have a few ways for you to build your community on Instagram right now, no matter where you are, whether you're just starting out, you've just posted those 10 and you've invited your friends and close friends and your family to connect with you, to follow you, or you have an established page and an established Instagram and you are looking to grow it. These 3 ways to build your community on Instagram right now are going to be useful for you as well. So the first thing is engage with the existing community. You've just built a new one. It is a group of followers. You should be following them as well, and use these initial accounts that you follow to find good content that adds value for you, and like the photos that do, and comment on them when you are able to add something to the conversation that is social media. One of the things that this will do is it will quickly identify for you who it is that engages with the community and who just broadcasts what it is that they do. You're going to find that you're going to have more valuable conversations with the people who engage and the accounts that engage rather than just the ones that just broadcast. You're going to use that knowledge to focus on those that engage to build a deeper connection with them. You're going to have conversations about the things that matter to your community with them, and then this will form a baseline of recommended content on the Explore tab within the Instagram app. That's the small looking glass that is next to the home button or house that you see in the graphics there. Seek out the new in your Explore tab. In that tab, Instagram collects and displays, based on their calculations of your preferences, the content that will offer the most value to you as a user of their app. User experience is very important because they don't want you to leave the app. If you leave the app, you're not viewing the ads that they generate revenue for the app, and it's all about the eyeballs. So use your likes, your comments, and your follows because the app is going to drive these data decisions. So if you ever find that you need to fix your feed, like we talked about in episode 12 with regard to Facebook, it is literally at your fingertips by changing what you interact with. If you find that you see accounts that don't really offer value, but you continue to like them or you continue to comment, then you are getting value of some kind, and the app is going to assume that you are finding value there and will continue to show them to you. It is serving you content that it calculates that you want to view and that you will interact with. And the best way to find new, to seek out the new, is with the Explore tab. And you can grow by commenting and following those in the Explore tab who add value to you. Again, this is going to build the group from which you are getting value, and hopefully you are adding value to the conversations that they are beginning, and that's how you can utilize part of the Explore tab. Also in the Explore tab, you have the option to use hashtags and local popular posts and local popular topics to find more content. These options, you can search for hashtags relevant to what you do. As you've explored others' posts, you've likely noticed the use of hashtags that are popular in your 5 focus areas for content that we talked about earlier. Search those hashtags to find other relevant content and potential new members of your community. Interact, just as you've done with others' content, to add value to their experience. Follow the accounts that add value to yours. And if you have a local focus, start to check out the location tags of content you find valuable and search for even more content with which to interact. Again, it is about adding value in the conversation that is social media. And I have a strategy for you here that's been made popular by Gary Vaynerchuk. It's called the $1.80 strategy. This is not going to cost you $1.80, but it's going to make sense when it's explained. Now that you know the tools of Instagram to use, take 9 relevant hashtags that are relevant to what it is that you do, where you are, or a particular topic, and comment on the top 10 posts of each hashtag where you can add value. You're adding your 2 cents to those posts. Now take a look add it up. By doing this on 90 photos, that is 9 hashtags times 10 photos each, where you've added your 2 cents, you're going to add up to $1.80. That is the $1.80 strategy. That $1.80 you spent in interactions in one day is going to outpace $180 in ads that you could run that day on the platform for actual meaningful interactions and organic growth for your brand. This growth, while far less expensive than running ads, will generate more value for you than hundreds of random follows due to a successful ad campaign because of the depth of the relational connections and the value that you're adding, and not just the addition of the transactional that the ad bought for you. Now, we didn't discuss stories as a part of this strategy, but the next question is specifically about Instagram stories, so it's best to incorporate that as a part of your Instagram strategy as well. This question comes from Melanie. Is there any advantage to using Instagram stories over Facebook stories? I notice that I personally have a tendency to watch Instagram stories, but I often ignore Facebook stories. Yes, and you actually answer part of your question in the question itself. So yes, there is value in utilizing Instagram stories over Facebook stories, but I definitely think that you should be using both Instagram stories and Facebook stories. You shared your personal preference for how you interact on both the Facebook platform and the Instagram platform when it comes to stories. And that exemplifies how many of your users, your community, your audience interact with your brand. They may ignore you in one place, but consume what you create without a second thought in another. And it all comes down to the user, and it's rarely about you. The first and most obvious advantage is that you're reaching people on Instagram with your story that you may not reach on Facebook. Your mom isn't even following you on all of the platforms where you create, so why would you expect that your community does? As we discussed in episode number 14 of Hustleburg, the value of Facebook stories is to reach people there. We pointed to the differing demographics and psychographics of each platform in that episode, and we noted that right now, the fastest growing age demographic on Facebook is 60 plus, while Instagram skews younger. And so that makes the community that you're speaking to on Instagram younger as well. The context and content of what you share on Instagram stories will have to be different than what it is that you would also share on Facebook stories because the audiences differ. And in that episode, we also discussed how stories, regardless of platform, present an opportunity to share the behind the scenes looks at what it is that you do. These off-the-cuff and less polished pieces of content give the viewer the feeling that they are getting to know you better outside of the planned, produced, and polished content that shows up in your feed. Stories give you an opportunity as well to share more me content than the mix in your feed. So that means that you're going to be able to do a few more salesy things than you would typically share in your feed. And you're also going to be able to use stories to only share a specific type of content if you choose, and you can kind of tease about that in your feed. You'll notice that things in Instagram stories are probably less polished. They have a lot more childlike drawings when it comes to the stickers. You'll see a lot more GIFs there as well. So it's definitely going to be something different than what you are able to put in your feed, and you should be able to utilize that with that less polished version in your Instagram stories. So aside from the audience differing, you're going to need differing content and context. You do not have the same linking capability, and we'll talk about linking and how that is built into the Instagram platform in a later question this episode. You're not going to have the linking ability that Facebook offers its stories on the Instagram platform until you're a much larger account or you're advertising on the platform. So that's going to force you to think about how to create and present content in your stories. Often you'll have to be more creative with the content and the context. So you have to even more to consider when you're sharing your Instagram stories. The beauty of that is it's going to make you better at producing quality content. With that said, let's see your stories. Our final question for this Q&A episode 18 of Hustleburg, comes from Chris. I want to link to several pieces of content outside of Instagram, as well as my other social media accounts. I've seen the link in bio hashtag on posts, and I'd like to know the best way to have several links under the same Instagram account. So I'm going to provide a little bit of background in how Instagram came about so that it gives you an idea of how to better understand using the platform, especially when you're trying to get users to deviate from that platform to see content outside it. So when Instagram began, it was an app that created check-ins and photos, and there was something kind of similar called Foursquare for checking in. So Instagram moved on to focus strictly on the visual. Photo sharing wasn't something that was particularly new because you could share photos on Facebook already. You had something called Flickr, which Yahoo later bought, and a variety of other options that were out there for sharing photos. But what made Instagram unique was that it was an app only. You could also, within that app, use a filter to make ordinary photos pretty extraordinary, and everything resided within the app itself rather than having to use Photoshop or another photo editor to tweak how the photo you captured was made extraordinary before you shared it with others. Obviously, this was something that users jumped on board with right out of the gate. You had 25,000 users that downloaded the app the first day it appeared in the App Store in October of 2010. In its first 2 months, the popularity soared. It had 1 million users, and there still was no usable, and still is no usable desktop version of this platform, unlike all the previous social media outlets. Everything resided within the app. And the reason for their growth in this way has more to do with how they built it, by keeping everything in the app. They were keeping everything on the phone. They wanted to showcase these images that you were able to take with your smartphone with a unique perspective on the ordinary by adding filters to make it extraordinary. They focused on the visual and sharing aspect of that visually captured moment in time. In fact, it wasn't even until 2.5 years after the app launched that you could even tag another user in your photo. This focus on the visual alone caused them to stand apart from the other social media platforms, and the fact that everything was in-app only caused them to stand apart as well. And they purposely made it difficult for you to share things off the app because they were trying to keep you engaged on the app and engaged with the visual. That makes things a bit more difficult for brands to navigate as they try to spam you with links to other content away from Instagram, because there's only one link per account and it's in your bio. It's not in a post. So they are forcing you to send people off platform for only the most important piece of content that you have at that time, the most important piece of content to you. And they've made it filled with friction in order to get there, because you have to click on the profile of the photo that got your attention, and you have to click the link in the bio in order to get off platform. They purposely created these friction points for the user to keep them engaged on their wildly popular platform. And as one of the top downloaded apps in the App Store and the Play Store, they are continuing to do very well with keeping people engaged and keeping them on the platform, rather than being taken away to a blog post or a news story that doesn't serve the purpose of visually interesting content that's shared on their platform. That's all pretty smart, right? They also created a market for sharing 2 or more of the most important pieces of content for you at that time. There are people who think that everything that they put out is the most important piece of content ever, and you'll see that they change their link in the bio with pretty much anything that they put out. But they've also created this market where, for those people who have more than the one most important piece of content, even with a little more friction for the user to get there, you have these services that have popped up to serve as a tree of links in your bio. The link in your bio is a tree of links that you want the person who is clicking away from Instagram to see, whether we're talking about an ebook that you're trying to share, or your website, or to drive them to connect with you on your other social media accounts. The brilliant part of this move of literally only having one place to put a link is that it causes the recipient user multiple friction points, multiple clicks, one of which is very hard to get to, and the second one is a bit easier to get off their platform. So you have services that have popped up, this new 2 clicks away marketing for you. On the bright side, however, pushes you back toward the platform to advertise at the post that you've captured the attention with, or it's going to force you to be so good with your content that it's worth those multiple clicks away, that it's probably just easier to advertise. But your content is going to be so good, especially when you're early in your marketing journey, when you first start thinking about linking to content outside of Instagram, that you're going to have to, early on, you're going to keep your advertising dollars to a minimum. So this is going to give you some wonderful practice for creating spectacular content. After all that, to kind of get back to the original question posed, there are several options, all operating with a freemium model where it's free with limited features, yet you can pay for a more robust version. Those options are Linktree, lnk.bio, and linkin.bio, which is offered by Later, which is actually a scheduling service for Instagram. For those of you who've noticed, frequently you'll see Hustleburg advertise link out to Smart URL, which for musicians and podcasters is certainly an option worth looking into. So when it comes to free versions, Linktree is the one that I want. It's the one for me. I realize it's free, so I'm not going to get bothered about what I don't pay for with it. I really do like Smart URL for Hustleburg because it offers a landing page. It offers some pretty deep analytics and sourcing options, but it's really only useful for passing people off to the preferred player of your audio content. I would say when it comes to picking one of these freemium services, for ease of use in the future, seek out the service whose premium version will best suit what you'll eventually want so that you can easily transition from free to paid with minimal hassle when you're at the point that you're able to pay for it. Worst case scenario, you'll bypass that entirely. You won't need to pay for that because you'll already be paying for the underpriced attention in Instagram story ads before they are priced according to their value, and you'll have people swiping up for your content as you're creating it at the point where you can advertise and you can put content that you need to them to see closer than the 2 friction-filled points away. So when it comes to the service, find the one that you're going to like that's premium. I like Linktree for podcasters and musicians. I like Smart URL. There are definite benefits to all, definite detractions to all. So just find the one that the premium version is going to work best for. Go with the free version until you can pay for it, or you're already advertising directly and you don't need to send people 2 friction-filled links away. I'd really like to thank everybody who sent in a question with regard to Instagram, and I look forward to answering the questions that you have about LinkedIn in episodes 20 and 22. Hey, you did it! You've just listened to Hustleburg. To thank you for listening, I have a free guide to help you get started marketing your business online, aptly named our Getting Started Guide, available at beyondyoursidehustle.com/gettheguide. See how to begin with the first 3 things you should be doing to market your business online. Speaking of businesses, if you're a small business owner in St. Pete and you'd like to be a guest on an episode of the podcast, please let us know at beyondyoursidehustle.com/podcastguest. If you got something of value from this podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast player. This is something small that you can do to help us shine the spotlight on all the great businesses St. Pete has to offer. The music in this episode is Defining Your Dreams by my friend Rhymer Educator. You can listen to his latest single, The Last One, on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen to great music. Soon he'll be releasing a mixtape of music created during the pandemic that you'll want to listen to. I've heard unmixed and unmastered tracks, and I can't wait to hear the whole thing. Thanks so much for listening, and if this is your first episode, we look forward to keep sharing with you how we do business in the Burg.